No Sweat. We're a radical activist campaign that's part of the trade union movement and the anti-capitalist movement. We exist to fight against sweatshop labour and exploitation, campaigning in solidarity for workers who work for people like this.
Nike's founder Phil Knight is estimated to be worth $12 billion, while workers in his Indonesian sweatshops get poverty pay.
Kita akan menyingkirkan orang-orang yang seperti yang di dalam itu. Apalagi Anda yang telah menggerogoti kita, telah menindas kita.
The anti-sweatshop student movement in America that started through the campaigning of United Students Against Sweatshops in the mid-90s is the movement from which No Sweat takes an enormous amount of inspiration. We brought activists from the US over to Britain in 2006 to talk about their experiences helping organise low-wage workers on university campuses and fight for a living wage.
Anti-sweatshop movements in the US started roughly 10 years ago when it was realized that a lot of collegiate apparel and a lot of clothes that young people were buying were coming from sweatshop conditions that were in Indonesia and China and other countries. And an organization called United Students Against Sweatshops was formed with the purpose of trying to make sure that garments would only be coming from factories that where workers were being paid a just and decent wage.
And also there's a move to have collegiate apparel made in factories that are actually union. So moving beyond just a fair and just wage, but also where they have representation and they have access to, a grievance procedure and representation.
No Sweat is in the process of helping a union federation called Bataille Ouvrière organise Levi workers in the free trade zones in northern Haiti. Giving direct support to organisations unionising sweatshop workers on the ground is what our campaign is all about. Along with Nike, Gap are one of the most notorious abusers of sweatshop labour on the high street. They've been exposed using sweatshops in countries like Laos, Cambodia and the American Pacific territory of Saipan.
Gap and Levi's and one or two other well-known companies have a lot of their jeans made in Lesotho. One of the garment workers' trade unions made connection with a garment workers' union in America, and the American union invited the garment workers from Lesotho over to New York, and they had a joint demonstration outside the Gap offices in New York. Gap in the end agreed to change the way they worked in Lesotho, and the union told me that Gap now have regular inspections of the factories. They've imposed quite strict health and safety conditions.
No Sweat does not advocate a consumer boycott of companies like Gap and other sweatshop employers. We believe that the front line of the struggle for workers' rights and against exploitation is in the workplace, not on our shopping lists.
Sweatshops are not just a third world problem, they exist in Britain too. In 2002, No Sweat uncovered a series of sweatshops in London's East End producing clothes for Topshop.
We found people on £2, £2.50 an hour. We found people being locked into their workplaces at lunchtime. We found people crowded into spaces that they couldn't possibly work in, and not only comfortably but safely. While we were campaigning, we got a lot of attention from support services in the area. The Fire Brigade Union, for example, were fantastic at coming and helping us threaten the closure of some of those factories. We got a lot of support from the Bengali Welfare Association, community organisations in the area. And we were able to actually force quite a number of meetings with managers of these local companies and at least force them to pay the minimum wage and force them to pay back pay. The G&B itself, going back to the 1880s and 1890s, was built on London's invisible workers, particularly London initially, then across the rest of the country, the invisible workers, the people who make the economy work. Our union and other unions were built on migrant workers who were coming over to the UK to literally physically build London. What came from the campaign and in the East End and development of work with No Sweat and other elements of the global justice movement was a position we took at the European Social Forum in London a couple of years ago, which was absolutely straightforwardly a position that said the G&B believes that no worker is illegal. Economic migration is something that the trade union movement accepts, supports and thinks is perfectly legitimate for people to do. So when economic migrants come to our country and come to our workplaces, we have to be there with them, making sure they've got their rights. They're part of our strategy to organise, they're part of our campaigns to get justice, equality and respect.
The problem of sweatshops isn't just limited to the garment industry. Most of the toys produced in this shop are made in the Far East in countries like China, where the average working week is over 50 hours, trade unions are illegal, and workers are employed as young as 14 years old. That means that the enjoyment of children in Britain is dependent upon the exploitation of children in the third world.
A caprice empire, clean-cut lines, a perfect body, on a dirty mind. The rules of this game say we all look the same.
Tesco's have just announced record profits, but everyone's exploited by Tesco's. From the Far East in Africa through to the shops in Britain, it's a chain of exploitation that no sweat's fighting to break.
Nuestro trabajo en la banderilla es, nos paramos, alzamos la banderilla, el avión pasa por encima de nosotros, nos pasa bañando de productos químicos como calixin, benlate, todo eso que fumigan para la cigatoca y todas las enfermedades de banano.
Que me botaron, me ultrajaban en palabras, me decían groserías, por lo que solamente porque firmé decían que era por el sindicato.
Estas son las armas con las cuales nos atacaron.
Aquí viven las guayas. En la guaya, claro, el man de la guaya.
Any more kids shot or kicked in the groin or gassed. We've had enough of it. If they want to gas the kids, let them gas all the grandmas because we're here. So are the babies. Gas the babies.
It's really brought worker struggles back into the discourse of the American left. Before, it was much more of a push of anti-war or environmentalism or several other different kinds of activism that weren't focused on worker struggles.
The Battle for Seattle in 1999 marked a new and important development in the global justice movement. For the first time, radical anti-globalisation and anti-capitalist campaigners linked up with the existing organised labour movement to build mass demonstrations and mobilisations against global corporate greed.
When the world has gone crazy, and it's all becoming clear, when they're gunning down our comrades, and it seems the end is near, as they're loading up the launchers for the tear gas grenades, we can take off our bandanas and kiss behind the barricades. When it's madness all around, and you can see this at a glance, we will sing and we will cry, we will laugh and we will dance, as they shout their marching orders beneath the helicopter blades. We shall seize the moment for a kiss behind the barricades. As the movement grows, there will be hills and bends, but at the center of the struggle are your lovers and your friends. And the more we hold each other up, the less we can be swayed. Here's to love and solidarity, and a kiss behind the barricade.